afternoon, everyone. Thank you for coming to Woodruff Health Sciences and Emory University. It's great to see everybody in person and online. Our board members, our president, Greg, thanks for joining us this afternoon, and of course, all of you. Before I begin, I want to start with a tribute to Wright Kaufman. Wright Kaufman, as many people know, was EVP-HA almost a decade ago, and under Wright's direction, we were able to respond to Ebola. We built research buildings. We focused on quality. Wright had many friends and endless number of fans. And so thank you, Wright, for everything you've done. And it's upon those people that came before us that serve as a foundation that we are able to now move forward. So I really want to thank those people before us and obviously in memory of Wright. It's been an interesting year, to say the least. When I stood on this stage last year, we were dealing with low margins, high turnover, difficult access. Technology, as Alistair remembers, was seen as an enemy and not a friend. In addition, we were not operating, as June reminds us, as a system, as a team. We were operating in successful silos. So thanks to Tammy Quest and a number of other leaders in this room, we had a retreat, which is what all academic people do when you're in trouble. You hire a consultant and you have a retreat. And that's what we did. And thanks to Tammy's leadership, we converged on this statement and said, we are going to change the course of our direction. We're going to be in the driver's seat and not in the passenger seat. And we're going to reimagine and transform health and academic health care. So rather than shower you with more words, over the next few minutes, I'm going to share with you 3 stories. The first story has to do with this map. This is a map of the United States, of course, and it's color-coded. The darker the color, the higher the frequency of the disease. The darker the color, the worse the disease. And from where you're sitting, the bottom right corner, our region happens to have a lot of dark color. And what sits in that dark color? Maternal mortality, breast cancer mortality, cardiovascular disease, stroke, migraines, ALS, Parkinson's, and dialysis. And there are many others. Now, dialysis is interesting because the frequency of end-stage renal disease is incredibly high in the South. And we own 4 dialysis units. We deliver over 100,000 dialysis treatments every year to 600 patients. We own those units, but those units live in leased properties. Those leased properties, of course, depend on the owners of those properties to keep those facilities clean and safe. So on a recent visit to one of those facilities last year, I met a patient by the name of Mr. Vickers. And I asked Mr. Vickers, what's wrong with this facility and what could we do better? And Mr. Vickers said, Doc, the roof leaks. He said, Doc, the holes are in the walls all over the place. He said, my car is outside and 2 or 3 times a year, my car gets broken into. We need to change this location. Mr. Vickers had been at that dialysis unit for 10 years entrusting us with his care. For those of you that don't know, if you're on dialysis, it's almost like a prison sentence, unless, of course, you get a transplant. The dialysis unit is a second home for these dialysis patients. They spend almost 20 hours a week in these dialysis units, and the patients become their friends. The staff becomes their families. So, leaving this unit, I picked up the phone and I called Robin Mori and Joey D. And I said, we need to get out of this unit. And they said, absolutely. I promise you we'll get out. It's going to cost some money. We're not going to tell June. It's going to take some time, but we're going to get us out of this unit. So fast forward 6 months after looking at a different location and asking Mr. Vickers now to play an active role in helping us find a new location, we found a new location. We found a location that was bright, had amazing windows. This is Shawana Jackson, the administrator in nephrology, and of course, Dr. Lee, Janice Lee, Mr. Vickers' doctor. And as you can see, Mr. Vickers is smiling because he knows and he can see him and his fellow patients are going to move to a new unit. Last week, holding Joey D. and Robin Morey accountable, I wanted proof that in fact things were progressing. And sure enough, they were. This is Mr. Vickers with a bigger smile now. The floor plans of the unit were there, and of course Shawana and Dr. Lee are there. And while I was standing there, I noticed that the unit from 20 chairs had gone to 40 chairs, and the space had doubled in size. And that's because our community needs that. We serve an incredible community, and we have a responsibility to doing so. Next story. Last year, some of you might remember, I talked about the Autism Center. It's been around for 30 years. It has over 60 children, ages 1 through 5, that are schooled there. It has over 22 faculty members, 5 staff. And on a visit that Alistair and I made, we realized that the playgrounds needed help. And that the playgrounds were only good for children of a certain age, and other children in different age groups could not participate because we didn't have safe playgrounds. So, thanks to Michael South, Bill McDonald, Gary Teal, and others, we changed that playground. There's a saying that Audrey Hepburn says, which is, if you plant a tree, you invest in your future. Well, Michael South reminds me, if you build a new playground, you invest in the future of those children and those families. 35% of the children at this facility are our children. They're Emory's children. They're our staff and faculty's children. And this is the picture at the ribbon cutting ceremony of the new facility. I promise you this is not a Photoshop picture. And yes, maybe we did choose a dreary day to take a picture of the before, but the after looks so good. The after looks so good. Here's the last story. This is an email I received from John Ellis. I don't know if John is in the audience today. But John is the interim CIO of the university. You might not be able to see this, but this is an email at 4:09 in the morning on July the 19th, a day, of course, many of us can't forget. This is an email that a few of us received, and John said, 32,000 Emory healthcare workstations and laptops received a bad file from CrowdStrike and are no longer working at Emory Healthcare. 3,800 university workstations aren't working. And what John did is he mobilized the team. It didn't matter this was healthcare, university, clinics. It mattered that we were a team. And he mobilized the team. He created swarms of people. And they went from nurses' station to nurses' station, clinic to clinic, OR to OR, offices to offices, and started to tackle one computer at a time. And over the ensuing 4 days, we had over 90% of our computers back online because of that team. This is a picture on the night of the 19th when Wayne and Scott and Alistair planning the next strategy as to which room and which floor they go to at 9 p.m. at night on a Friday. Now, lest you think that Alistair is always wearing a suit, he is, in fact, always wearing a suit. He wears a suit all the time. He even wears the same suit when he does yoga. But we have dedicated personnel. So, how did we get there? How did those observations which I made and reflected your accomplishments be so successful? Your accomplishments. We did so because last year when I was standing up here, our expenses exceeded revenues, and this year our revenues exceeded expenses. And as John Rice, the chair of Emory Healthcare's board, says, it doesn't take a genius to know that that's a good formula. And as a result, with a $400 million swing in the healthcare system, thanks to June and Chris and others, and all of you, we now have a margin. We have a margin that we can work with to make an investment in our academic mission. A mission as to why we are all here Now, we all came to work at an academic medical center to serve that tripartite mission, healthcare, research, and education. We are a nonprofit healthcare system, but that doesn't mean we enjoy losing money. Not at all, because we need to make that margin and profit so we can invest back into our mission. But who came together? Who came together to change this trajectory, to change our direction? It was all of you. It was all of you who supported Emory Healthcare either through brand, through discipline, to reducing expenses, to improving revenue, making ourselves more efficient, speaking up, highlighting the fact that we need to change certain things or keep certain things. It was all of you. And this could not be possible were it not for our president, who decided to put together an incredible team, the team that starts with many people in this audience and continues with the people that are not here today. That's the team that we benefit from, thanks to Greg. Now, we have an incredible healthcare system, but we also have tremendous brand equity. And what does brand equity mean? It means that the value of our name is higher than the components of what we have to offer. And thanks to Jenner Wood and Russ Hardin, we were able to get James Quincey on this stage, the CEO of Coca-Cola, to remind us of the importance of brand equity. And through surveys, looking at our competition, Emory and Emory Healthcare have tremendous brand equity. It's brand equity that differentiates ourselves, but we have to be held accountable to that. We have to be held accountable to that. Every 3 or 4 weeks, I get a text, an email, or a phone call from somebody who has a complaint. And I welcome those complaints. And why is that? Because when they're complaining, it means they care about us. They're holding us to a standard. They have high expectations for us, and they're entrusting us with their care. I worry about the day where they stop calling, because that means they stop caring. Now, June, of course, reminds me that the day they stop calling, we're going to be perfect. Sure enough, he's getting us there. Sure enough, he's getting us there. But as a result of our improvement, we can now make investments. We can make investments in our patients. This is a figure where up here are the departments in this Emory healthcare system, and here is the time to get an appointment. The closer to the left, the shorter it takes to get an appointment, days or weeks. The longer on this axis, the longer it takes to get an appointment. And you see some of them are have long tails, but most of them are moved to the left, thanks to Penny and Amaka and Sarah and others working on access. And what's changed as a result of this access? Today at Emory Healthcare, we see just under 1,000 new patients a day. 1,000 patients a day, 150 of whom are new. The point being is we would not be seeing those patients were it not for the hard work of our chairs, our clinics, and our departments, and our access that's led the way. That's the result of the people in this audience. We can also make investments in our employees. We can make investments in our patients, and we can make investments in our employees. And thanks to Sharon and Rock and others, we've been able to lift the salaries of almost 12,000 employees at Emory Healthcare. And in the fall, 6,000 more will be evaluated to make sure that we are competitive, to make sure that we demonstrate to our employees we respect the fact that you bring your talent, your capabilities, discipline to making us better. Now, Rock and June like to go and thank our employees. And so they go from hospital to hospital pretty frequently. And this is a picture at one of the hospitals with Rock and June here. This is Rock planning with a truck that gives away ice cream sandwiches and shakes and cookies. Now, Rock likes to bring this truck wherever he goes because he said, Ravi, if you bring this truck, the people will come out. Okay? So as you can see, Rock is standing here. I'm actually behind that table on the left there. We are a healthcare system. Let's remind ourselves of that. But what this highlights is that turnarounds aren't just about cutting. They're about adding. They're about rewarding. And when we do that, our patients enjoy themselves because they get amazing care, and our employees reward us back. Our employees reward us back. Our turnover rates have plummeted almost 50% since 2 years ago. 50% reduction in our turnover rates. Would not have happened were it not for the work that all of you have done. When we reward our employees reward us. Because of this improvement, we can make additional investments. We can invest in the care of our patients. This is an investment in heart and vascular. The glory days of cardiovascular medicine that Emory had in the 1980s, we want to bring back. This investment, this is Bill Mickelson, the head of invasive cardiology, and Ellen Bailey, one of our trustees, at the opening of the 3T new facility, an incredible facility, and Spencer King spoke at that, as well as Matt and June and others. This represents a component of our entire heart and vascular system-wide approach as a component in our entire system. One that we can be proud of, and we have support by incredible philanthropists and donors like the Carlisle Fraser Group, but others are taking notice as well. I'll just step back and say the following, and that is, we often joke about the fact that we train our competition. We train our competition. Well, I can tell you, as a result of these kinds of investments, as a result of the journey that we're on, those individuals at other institutions are knocking on our door. They want to come back, thanks to the excitement that we've generated, that you've generated. We can also make investments in areas that otherwise people are leaving. In the state of Georgia, 9 hospitals have closed since 2010. 18 hospitals are on the verge of closing. What are those services that have been most affected by the closings? Obstetrics, emergency medicine, and psychiatric care. Hospitals and systems are getting out of the business of those 3 areas, while we are getting in the business of those areas, because that's what our community needs. We can get in the business of those areas. We can also be visible in our community, and we can make investments in our community. And this is a picture of Lachey Turner and Byron Hunter, flanked by Amaka Inanye, our Chief Transformation Officer, and the Mayor, Andre Dickens, in a community event where almost 1,000 people show up and learn how to give CPR. We can make sure we're in our community, showing our community that we care and are meeting their needs. Now, a few months ago, I got a call from Craig Hale. Craig is in the booth back there. I warned him about this. Craig said, Ravi, I have an incredible community event that I'm going to go to, and I need you to support me. And I said, sure. And that's Craig at a baseball game. That's Craig with his wife, Shaloa, the Reverend Shaloa, his daughter Anaya, and his son CJ. And I said, Craig, this doesn't look like a community benefit event. And he said, Ravi, I'm doing you a favor. This is reconnaissance, because in the back here, there's a sign of Emory Healthcare, and there's a sign of our competition, and our sign is smaller. My job is to do reconnaissance and spy. I can excuse Craig for his community activities. We can be visible in our community in all sorts of ways. And because of how we're doing, we can also be good partners. And this is a picture of Valerie Montgomery Rice, the president and CEO of Morehouse, visiting one of our hospitals in the DOU, thanks to Jen Shuck and others. And because of that visit and because of her interest in working closely with us, we now have 9 Morehouse doctors who have been credentialed at the DOU. We have students that are coming back. We have a good, strong relationship with Morehouse. We have an outstanding relationship with Grady, a terrific relationship with Children's, which I highlighted last time, but we also have a great relationship with Georgia Tech, and this is Adam Webb and Nick Ioniti, They invited members of the engineering processing team at Georgia Tech to showcase how to best manage and coordinate operating room supplies. And they came and gave a presentation. Because of our improvement, we can become good partners. So in the next few minutes, I'm going to turn to research. I'm going to turn to research because that is, again, another and key core mission of ourselves. And thanks to all of you, our investigators, led by Deb Bruner and David Stevens, we have pierced the $1 billion mark in terms of research. What an incredible feat. That's 2 years in a row, right? Now, what people don't remember or think about when they see this number is that those dollars actually go and employ people as well. They allow us to do the research, but they allow us to employ people. $1 billion translates to almost 11,000 jobs in our system. That's the economic impact that we have in our community. And we need to remind people of that. That is, we employ people at Emory Healthcare. We also employ people because of research. And we'll come back to this point. So, how have we done in terms of research? We have been on the NBC Nightly News, thanks to the School of Nursing. This is Vicky, and this is Roxana, highlighting their work with Georgia Tech on sensors that detect heat-related illnesses before they occur. It was on the NBC Nightly News and early today, and imagine the reach that Emory School of Nursing has had. We publish in the major clinical journals, the New England Journal of Medicine, in JAMA, and others, and we collaborate to do so. In this particular article, the first one on top, different kinds of cooking that leads to air pollution and asking the question, does it stunt growth of children? It's a collaboration with nursing, Dr. Thompson, Sinaroy, Ramakrishnan, Chen, and Wang from Rollins, collaboratively coming together to publish in the New England Journal of Medicine. Dr. Perdia and Dan Barrow on management of intracerebral bleeding. School of Nursing and Nephrology on dialysis advanced care planning. We publish in the major clinical journals. We also publish in the major basic science journals. Those basic science journals are not just mantelpieces. Those basic science journal articles actually change medicine. This is Eric's paper on the top here on looking at enzymes that break down N-glycans, published in Nature. Scientific Reports, another Nature journal. Susan Wall looking at clotho and potassium channels. And Guido Silvestri looking at an inflammasome as the explanation as to why primates, when they get infected with SIV, do not have a reduction in CD4 counts, but when humans get infected with HIV, they do. And if you can understand why that's the case, potentially this CARD8 inflammasome, you can potentially change the course of infection for HIV. We publish in the major scientific journals, and we do so in a collaborative way. Just last week, Carlos made me aware of this paper. What an incredible paper. And I'll highlight a few things. The first one was, well, let me just first tell you, the question that is being asked is, why do people have to continue to get COVID vaccines? So that's the question. And so what these investigators did, in fact, Francis Lee led a team that looked at flu, tetanus, and COVID. You get a vaccine. Those vaccines educate antibody-secreting cells. Those cells make their way in circulation, and some of them get into the bone marrow. They get into the bone marrow, and like ninjas, they sit there and they wait for the next infection. And when you get another infection, those cells become active. And what she found was that in certain kinds of flu and tetanus, those cells exist, but in COVID, they don't. And if we could understand why that's the case, we could potentially make better vaccines. And that's the beauty of this research. But I also highlight this because of the various departments that came together. Pulmonary, allergy, critical care. These are Emory faculty. Rheumatology, Emory faculty. Hematology, oncology, Emory faculty. Human Immunology Center, Emory faculty. All Emory faculty making an impact in science. And amazing teamwork. We have teamwork that goes on throughout Woodruff Health Sciences all the time. This is Seema and Nadine working in the Center for Transmission of Airborne Pathogens. And what they're doing, after a $10 million grant that they just got, is creating a setup to understand why and how bacteria and viruses transmit in the air and why some people get infected and some people don't. $10 million grant that they just both got. We can bring together different segments of Woodruff Health Sciences. This is Venkat and Alan. And Venkat, as you know, is the leader of diabetes in our organization, and he's created these long longitudinal cohorts because diabetes is a latent disease. It takes time for you to get diabetes, and you can understand the risk factors if you follow people for 20 years, which is what he's done. Well, Alan was looking for a cohort of patients that were followed regularly over time, large cohort, and he could then follow the risk factors for who then gets Alzheimer's. And they got together, and they wrote a grant, and successfully got an NIH grant of $21 million just a few months ago, working together across Woodruff Health Sciences. And we can also seed collaborations. This is our tuberculosis resistance in tuberculosis group, Neil, Jyoti, and Ken, and then Mirko and Paul from our primate group. We can see these kinds of relationships. They're interested in studying drug-resistant tuberculosis. We have a primate center. Why not come together and understand those kinds of mechanisms? And because of the work we do, we get national and international recognition. This is Rob Califf, the FDA commissioner, Sandra, Anant, Fred, Neil, and others. Rob Califf came here to talk about the importance and how to move forward in artificial intelligence. Decided to make his key comments at our institution because of the work we do. And we also have international recognition. And this is a picture of Rafi Ahmed and myself with the Minister Grace and Paul Young, a professor, because we are setting up a vaccine center together with our amazing colleagues at the University of Queensland. And in fact, I believe today they're visiting us here as well, Trent, Andrew, and Shannon. So I welcome them to this, and thank you for that relationship, and thank you for trusting us with the partnership to build an incredible vaccine center across the world. We celebrate our science. We also celebrate our scientists. Last year, we had 3 inductees into the American Society of Clinical Investigation, which is an honor society of scientists, physician scientists. And this year, we had 3 other remarkable entries into this society. Nadine, Raphael, Sarita Shah, and Jindan Yu. Jindan works on genetics and epigenetics of prostate cancer, Sarita on tuberculosis, and Nadine, as you know, on vaccinology and translational work. Our scientists are recognized nationally and internationally. This is the next generation of Woodruff Health Sciences. So we come back to this figure because it reminds us of our successes, but it also has to remind us of why we need a robust health system. Because it's known that while the dollars that come in for research are amazing, they don't pay for all of our expenses. They don't pay for all of our expenses, and we have to come up with additional dollars to support doing research at this institution. And what is that? It's about 23 cents to the dollar. And so let me do the math with you. In 2014, Emory University and Woodruff Health Sciences had to come up with $100 million of extra dollars after we brought in about $500 million. And in 2024, where we've doubled our research revenues, which is fantastic, we've had to come up with another $231 million. Now, I know Deb Bruner and David Stevens aren't going to put a banner out, congratulations, Woodruff Health Sciences lost $231 million this year. That's not the point. The point is we have to come up with those dollars from somewhere in order to support the amazing research that we do. Now, in addition to research, our last and most important mission, I would say, is education. And let me highlight the educational initiatives of our deans. This is Dean McCauley and Leica Steigert. Leica oversees our learning center. If anyone has not been to the Decatur Simulation Center, I urge you to go there. What an incredible facility. Creating the next way of training students by this state-of-the-art facility. This is Anna and Ania, who are students in our program, or were students in our program, taking advantage of our simulation center. Now, just last week, we were notified that our Bachelor of Science in Nursing program, under Linda McCauley's watch, our School of Nursing was ranked #1 in the entire nation. I asked Linda, what took you so long? And Linda said, Ravi, they've only been ranking nursing schools for 4 years. We started at 3, then we were 2, and now we're 1. What more can you expect? Thank you, Linda. Dean Fallon. Now, first I will say that I came to visit some of her faculty on a specific day, and you can tell what day that was. But Dean Fallon was going around passing candy to her faculty. What she has done is ask the question, what do future leaders of public health need, and how can the Rollins School respond to those needs? And 2 things she's done. One, she has created a Doctor in Public Health program led by Allison Chamberlain. That's a new program that we're going to be offering online to train not just public health workers, but public health leaders. And again, responding to the community. The second thing she's doing, among other things in her strategic initiatives, is to focus on communication. And Ravi B. and myself and others said and pushed her, what are those areas that we need to be better in? And she said communication. Communication in public health. How important is that? And in her strategic initiatives, that is a component. Dean Fallon is pushing the boundaries of education. And so is Dean Wong. Dean Wong came to us from Dartmouth in March, or at the end of March. She started and was running on day 1. She started and had to deal with an accreditation visit. Immediately thereafter, she had to submit a budget. And right after that, she had graduation. And this is graduation with Carlos Ira and the president of the National Academy of Medicine, Victor Zhao, our graduation speaker and honorary degree recipient at Emory University. Sandra is not only looking at undergraduate medical education, but also graduate medical education, asking of the 1,436 GME students, GME interns, residents, and fellows that we have at this institution, can we create a supportive network to keep the best and the brightest here? We celebrate the fact that they go on after they leave our institution and graduate and go to other institutions. And why not create an incentive to stay here so that we can keep the best and the brightest? And that's what she's going to be focusing on in addition to undergraduate medical education. So in the last few minutes, I'm going to focus on 2 flagship areas. And I'm sorry if I'm not going to focus on your area. It is still a flagship area, I promise. Neurosciences. There is such a demand for neurologic care. When you look at the trends of neurologic care and needs, it's only going up. We have a population that's aging, and we have to respond to that. Most neurologic conditions affect individuals as they age. Not all, of course, but many do. So we have to double down, and it's very challenging to focus on this population, and the reason being is because the payer mix of the older population is a Medicare payer mix. It's not a commercial payer mix. And a lot of people then don't want to invest because of that, unfortunately and sadly. But we're an academic medical center with a mission. This is Alan Levy, Monica, and Jessica, all from Emory, and the world-renowned sopranist, Renee Fleming, and Sanjay Gupta, a member of our neurosurgery department, who part-time works at CNN. And what they're talking about is the importance of music and the mind and how it helps with healing. We have world leaders in Alzheimer's. We have world leaders in Parkinson's disease. We also have world leaders in ALS. This is Jonathan Glass and his team. ALS, motor neuron disease, devastating. Somebody gets older, Lou Gehrig's disease, ALS. And if you go to his clinic, which he has every Friday, you'll see people taking care of patients and families, educating them about how best to care for individuals with this horrible condition, as well as doing clinical trials and clinical research. And as the population ages, the demand is only going up. But it's not one of those areas that people get excited about because, again, the insurance of this population is not the best in terms of reimbursement. But it doesn't matter to us. That's not our mission. Our mission is to take care of them. If you ever want to see outstanding care, go to Jonathan's ALS clinic. We can also think about the other needs in neurosciences. Our neurologic clinics have a long wait time. It's one of those departments that have a long tail. And we can offload that tail. We can ask, what do our patients need? And one of them is care for headaches, and migraine headaches in particular. If you look at the map of the United States and the frequency of migraine headaches, again, a concentration in the southeast, just like all the other diseases. And so thanks to Greg Esper, Jaffer Khan, Gambagoli, we took a visit to a leading headache center, Jefferson in Philadelphia, and asked, how do we build a headache center? How do we build a world-class headache center because the Southeast does not have one? And we came back and we put the plans together, and thanks to Vicky and Freddie and others, we were able to get an incredible donor to help us support that. And the pièce de résistance is we were able to recruit Simi Parek from Jefferson to lead the headache center. We did ask them permission, mostly. But they were kind because they train leaders in headaches and headache centers, and we were willing and gladly willing to have Simi join our faculty, and the headache center is now in its planning process and will open up next year. Cancer, our flagship program. Winship Cancer Center is known and has brand recognition throughout our city, our state, our region. It's published many studies. Many studies have come out of Winship, and I'm just going to highlight one study. It's a study of patients with unresectable lung cancer, non-small cell lung cancer, unresectable. They get chemotherapy, the cancer's still there, it's unresectable. And so a clinical trial is done with a specific molecule called an EGRF inhibitor, third generation, and you see the curves from the back of the room that are usually unheard of in oncology. And what do I mean by that? The median survival of those people with unresectable lung cancer who don't get any of this experimental drug, they live on average 5 to 6 months. And those individuals that get the experimental drug live longer than 40 months, longer than 3 years. Suresh Ramalingam, the head of our NCI designated cancer center, presented this study as the senior author at a recent major cancer meeting and received a standing ovation, according to Sandra. How can we not celebrate the fact that we have leading investigators and do outstanding science? We can take that and marry that with the fact that our state has a high incidence of lung cancer depending on the counties you live in. And we can look at risk factors, and we can look at Emory Healthcare and ask, who at Emory Healthcare needs extra screening? We can marry the research with the clinical data. We can marry the experimental treatments with the epidemiologic data. And that's the beauty of being at Woodruff Health Sciences and Emory Healthcare. But I'm going to pick on Winship for another reason, because we also have to be transparent about what we are not doing well, not just in cancer, but in every other field. But in cancer, we can look carefully, thanks to the leaders here, and ask the question, we can recruit individuals, incoming faculty into Winship, but we also lose some. And why is that the case? Because we're not willing to lose outstanding people. We can be honest with ourselves. We don't have to sanitize our data. And thanks to Suresh and others, we're doing that. We can ask the question, why are we not outstanding in likelihood to recommend from a patient satisfaction standpoint, and why are we not seeing patients in time? We can be honest about our data and ask, how can we do better? It's the only way we're going to be able to do better, by being honest with our data. And we can look at new technologies and ask, can we implement digital pathology, for example, and improve the way we do things, or improve clinical trial outcomes in Winship? And if we take that exercise and go through every department and every division, being honest with ourselves, our journey will continue to be incredible. And we can lean forward and take some risks. And in the last 2 slides, or 3 slides, I'm going to share with you some of those risks. Not really a risk, but let me just highlight the picture. You're a patient at Emory University Orthopedic and Spine Hospital. You just had knee surgery. You're sitting there waiting to be discharged. The clock is ticking. You've changed clothes, but you're waiting for that discharge instructions from the nurse. The nurse comes in and says, I'm going to go over your instructions on wound care, eating, rehabilitation, and so forth, but I'm sorry, I'm interrupted because I have to go see another patient. And you wait and wait and wait, and you get frustrated. You're ready to go home. Well, thanks to a number of leaders, you can have Erica Davis, who sits in an office, who's a nurse and specializes in discharge planning. And she can ring a doorbell to an electronic device inside a room, and this is Monique Bouvier, and you can pull up that device, answer the phone, and Erica can give you the instructions of wound care, discharge planning, medications you should take, when is your next visit, how to do rehab, and spend the 20 or 30 minutes you need. She's not rushed. That's what she does. And we can begin to think of novel ways to improve the care of our patients using technologies. We're experimenting with certain technologies, some cool technologies, but asking how best can we use technologies, because technology is not our enemy. It can be our friend. Alistair, it can be our friend. Okay? We have to make it our friend. So we're exploring different kinds of technologies, and we're doing some pilot studies at St. Joseph's and expanding them to Hillendale. But let me just paint the picture for you. A doctor goes into a computer and changes a medication dose, adds an IV fluid, changes the instruction for discharge. The only way a nurse finds out about that is he or she has to go back on the computer to check if there's an update. But what if the technology allowed it such that when the doctor put in those orders, there was a push notification on her phone, on her watch, on her iPad, so that 1, she's not going back to the computer routinely to see if there's a change. 2, she's not wasting time as a result of that. And 3, she's notified immediately and she can act on those changes immediately. That's the kind of technology. And in addition, you can actually go back to this scenario with Erica, and whatever she tells the patient, we can put that on an app so that when the patient is discharged, the app reminds them of everything that Erica just told her. And those are ways that we can use technology moving forward to reduce burnout and improve communication with our patients. We can think imaginatively about the hospital of the future looks like with novel technologies to monitor falls and listening for alarms and beepers. And we can do that, and we can dream because of our improvements. So, why did I come to Emory? Why did I come to Woodruff Health Sciences? I came, like all of you, to create a sustainable model for the academic mission. Our hospitals have to be robust. We have to remain competitive. We have to make sure our footprint is large enough and our brand equity is high enough so that we are the payer's preference. We have to make sure our endowments are strong. And thanks to Josh and Freddie and others, we're doing that. We have to diversify our portfolio and think of creative ways of working with industry. Academic institutions, academic medical centers can partner together. And we can move forward and work closely with those incredible philanthropists, individuals and foundations that are invested in our future and want to continue to be part of our journey, but we have to reciprocate and make sure we demonstrate that we're responsible and accountable for their generosity. I came to Emory to leverage all segments of the university and all segments of Woodruff Health Sciences. I've showed you examples of nursing and public health and medicine and diabetes and Alzheimer's. Haiyan Fu works in the area of new medicines, and he's in chemical biology, and he's looking at new medicines in cancer. So you have chemical biology and pharmacology to cancer. Barbara Rothbaum is looking at new medicines for PTSD and working with the VA. We can think of ways of coming together. A few weeks ago, I walked down the path here and went to go visit, thanks to Dr. Dyer, and Dr. Leota, the chemistry department. And in the chemistry department, I met an investigator, Khalid Salaita, who is looking at molecules that come together and cells that come together and measuring the pressure and having the sensors to measure the pressure when those molecules are coming together. And he's taking that biology and actually predicting who has activated platelets for a disease called heparin-induced thrombocytopenia. At Emory Healthcare, Craig Coopersmith deals with heparin-induced thrombocytopenia and is trying to figure out how to diagnose that condition. And we have an incredible investigator in the Department of Chemistry that's working on a test for that. That's what I mean about leveraging and taking advantage of our incredible university. And that's our competitive advantage. We have to do that. And finally, we have to lead in innovation to benefit our patients, to develop new drugs, new devices, new diagnostics, to benefit our learners, novel ways of curriculum design, novel ways of teaching, novel ways of ensuring retention, looking at curriculum to prepare our students for what's evolving in our communities, and ways perhaps of using technology to reduce burnout among our employees. That's why I came to Emory. So with that, let me indulge you for just a few minutes on a short video to remind you of who Woodruff Health Sciences is.
I believe in relationships. I think that they are the cornerstone.
So Emory is a large academic medical system, so I can simultaneously build a career as a clinician, as a clinical nurse, while furthering my studies under the same roof.
One of the great things about Emory is it really lives up to the spirit of humanity.
Dr. Padilla, he was the hands of God that saved my life.
The whole gamut of things that will be based on a lot of the findings that we have was revolutionary.
It's so nice to be able to say we know what the best option for him is, and now we know. So that's very comforting for us.
The data from the non-human primate studies used to test this new drug, belatacept, in people paved the way for approval as one of the first new drugs approved for kidney transplantation in decades.
The level of collaboration is unlike anything I've seen across the country.
The things that were unbelievably attractive here was Emory itself. The history of Emory in medicine is the center of innovation.
You know, I was a different person afterwards. I knew that I had a second chance on life.
That was wonderful. That showed us again that they care for their people.
We're always pushing the needle when it comes to being innovative and advancing technologies. Making people better is such an amazing feeling.
Each operating unit has a director of public safety, so somebody that's responsible for those facilities at the operating unit.
To me, public health is when you imagine a world where everyone gets to live a full, healthy life, where they have safe communities where they live, they have access to good food, they have access to health care. That's what public health is. We work every day for that vision. We are probably changing the system a little tiny bit for each one individual person we see.
Honestly, what a difference it has made in the health and lives of my folks and the thousands of farm workers it has served since then.
Overarching goal is to be transformative in research, training, and clinical care delivery.
So rather than separating autistic children so that they're in a program by themselves, autistic people are people the same as anyone, and we all belong together, playing together, growing together, laughing together.
We are growing our people as we go along. We have to not be afraid to tell people how good we are. And we are good. That's the opportunity to continue to win, continue to grow, and continue to position ourselves as the best healthcare provider out there.
Leadership is basically influencing people in such a way that they want to accomplish the mission. People gotta want to work for you. They gotta be motivated to do that. They gotta have the love of what they do. Without that, it's no team. Team is the thing.
I want to thank Kyle and Steak and Tammy for putting that together, that incredible video that highlights who we are. So where are we going to go? Well, one can say that it's time to celebrate, like Cheryl is reminding us here. Or we can relax, and believe it or not, that's Gary Teal doing yoga, obviously in need of a different outfit. The point is, we can pause to celebrate. We can pause to make sure that we reward ourselves of these short victories. But we have to get back. We have to continue to evolve. We have to continue to work as a team. We have to continue to support each other. We have to continue to innovate. And that's what makes us great. So Greg, thank you very much for building this team. I really appreciate it. And I thank you all for coming this afternoon. And please join me upstairs for a reception. Cheers.